Unpacking the Vietnam War's lasting legacy. Why did the Vietnam War become one of the most controversial conflicts of the 20th century? It was a war that polarized nations and sparked global debates about military intervention, political ideologies, and human rights. Its complexity and the profound impact on countless lives continue to evoke intense emotions and discussions today. The Vietnam War was a protracted conflict in Southeast Asia, lasting from 1955 to 1975. It pitted communist North Vietnam and its allies against South Vietnam and the United States. This war was significant for its unprecedented media coverage, extensive anti-war movements, and its profound impact on American politics and society. The roots of the Vietnam War stretch back to the early 20th century, with colonial domination and the rise of nationalist movements. After World War II, Vietnam's quest for independence clashed with Cold War dynamics, setting the stage for a conflict that would become a proxy battleground for global superpowers. French colonialism left an indelible mark on Vietnam, shaping its political, social, and economic landscape. The resistance against French rule spurred a fierce desire for self-determination among the Vietnamese people, sowing seeds of conflict that would later erupt into a full-scale war as colonial powers faded. The Geneva Accords in 1954 temporarily divided Vietnam along the 17th parallel, with the North led by communists and the South by anti-communists. This division heightened tensions, setting the stage for a struggle that would soon escalate into one of the most divisive conflicts of the 20th century. The rise of communism significantly escalated tensions in Vietnam. Inspired by Marxist ideology, the Viet Minh, led by Ho Chi Minh, sought to unify Vietnam under a communist government. This ideological struggle drew attention from global powers, fearing the spread of communism across Southeast Asia, setting the stage for international involvement. The United States became increasingly concerned as communism gained traction in Vietnam. Viewing it as a threat to democracy and fearing the domino effect, the U.S. decided to intervene. This involvement marked a significant shift, transforming what was initially a regional conflict into an international battleground. The Gulf of Tonkin incident marked a pivotal moment for U.S. military engagement in Vietnam. Reports of North Vietnamese attacks on American destroyers prompted Congress to pass the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, granting President Johnson authority to deploy U.S. forces, thereby escalating America's military commitment in the region. Operation Rolling Thunder, a massive bombing campaign, aimed to weaken North Vietnam's resolve and ability to wage war. Targeting infrastructure and supply routes, it sought to pressure the North into negotiation. However, the campaign also intensified Vietnamese resistance and fueled anti-war sentiment back in the United States. The Tet Offensive was a major turning point in the Vietnam War. Launched by the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong, it involved surprise attacks on key South Vietnamese cities. Though militarily costly for the North, it shattered U.S. public confidence in the war effort, altering military strategies and public perception dramatically. The Tet Offensive marked a critical juncture in the Vietnam War, challenging both military strategies and public perception. Launched in 1968 by North Vietnamese forces, it consisted of surprise attacks on major cities, including Saigon. Despite being a military failure for North Vietnam, it profoundly shifted American opinion against the war. The My Lai massacre shocked the world, revealing the darker side of the conflict. In March 1968, U.S. soldiers killed hundreds of unarmed Vietnamese civilians, including women and children. This atrocity heightened anti-war sentiment and underscored the moral complexities of the war, sparking widespread outrage and protests. Nixon's Vietnamization strategy aimed to reduce American involvement by transferring combat roles to South Vietnamese forces. This policy intended to enable a U.S. withdrawal while maintaining pressure on North Vietnam. However, it faced criticism for prolonging the war and failing to achieve a stable, independent South Vietnam. The rise of the anti-war movement in the U.S. was fueled by growing discontent with the Vietnam War. Protests erupted nationwide, drawing diverse groups, including students and veterans. These demonstrations challenged government policies, influenced public opinion, and played a pivotal role in shaping the country's political landscape during the 1960s. Media coverage of the Vietnam War significantly influenced public opinion and policy decisions. Graphic images and uncensored reports from the front lines brought the brutal realities of the conflict into American living rooms. This unprecedented exposure fueled skepticism, eroded trust in government narratives, and intensified calls for an end to the war. The Vietnam War featured pivotal figures who shaped its course and legacy. Among them, Ho Chi Minh emerged as a revolutionary leader, inspiring the Vietnamese quest for independence. His vision for a united communist Vietnam drove the North's efforts, influencing the war's ideological and military strategies significantly. Lyndon B. Johnson, as U.S. President, played a crucial role in escalating American involvement in Vietnam. Determined to contain communism, he authorized increased troop deployments and bombing campaigns. His decisions, however, faced growing domestic opposition, contributing to the war's contentious nature and ultimately impacting his political career. Richard Nixon's presidency marked a shift in U.S. strategy with his Vietnamization policy, aimed at reducing American troop presence while bolstering South Vietnamese forces. His approach, including secretive actions like the Cambodian bombings, drew criticism but eventually led to the controversial and tumultuous end of U.S. involvement. U.S. military strategies in Vietnam involved conventional warfare, leveraging technological superiority. In contrast, Vietnamese forces, notably the Viet Cong, employed guerrilla tactics, utilizing the dense jungle terrain to their advantage. This strategic dichotomy underscored the challenges faced by American forces, altering traditional approaches to warfare. The Viet Cong's guerrilla warfare proved highly effective, relying on surprise attacks, ambushes, and an intimate knowledge of the terrain. Their tactics, coupled with widespread local support, frustrated U.S. military efforts and demonstrated the limitations of conventional warfare against a determined, unconventional adversary. The Viet Cong's guerrilla warfare tactics were instrumental in their resistance against U.S. forces. Utilizing ambushes, tunnels, and an intimate knowledge of the terrain, they effectively countered technologically superior American forces. Their strategy relied on surprise, mobility, and the support of local populations, making traditional military engagements challenging for U.S. troops. The use of Agent Orange during the Vietnam War had devastating effects, both immediate and long-term. This herbicide was employed to defoliate forests, depriving the Viet Cong of cover. However, it led to severe health issues, including cancer and birth defects, impacting generations of Vietnamese civilians and American veterans. The draft and conscription during the Vietnam War profoundly affected American youth and society. Many young men were compelled to serve, leading to widespread protest and resistance. This compulsory service heightened societal tensions and contributed to a growing anti-war movement, reflecting deep divisions within the United States about the conflict. Prisoners of war faced immense hardships during their captivity in Vietnam. Enduring physical and psychological torture, they demonstrated resilience despite the grim conditions. Their experiences highlighted the brutal realities of war, and many POWs returned home as symbols of endurance, with their stories fostering greater awareness and empathy. Vietnam veterans encountered numerous struggles upon returning home, often facing societal indifference or hostility. Despite these challenges, they contributed significantly to their communities and advocated for recognition and support. Their efforts helped spur awareness about PTSD and other war-related issues, highlighting the need for comprehensive veteran care and services. The Vietnam War had a devastating impact on Vietnamese civilians, affecting millions through loss, displacement, and trauma. The conflict led to widespread destruction of infrastructure and homes, leaving deep scars on the population. Many families were torn apart, and the long-term social and psychological effects are still felt in Vietnam today. The fall of Saigon marked the official end of the Vietnam War, symbolizing both the collapse of South Vietnam and a significant shift in global power dynamics. This event triggered mass evacuations and a refugee crisis, as thousands sought to escape the incoming communist regime, leaving a lasting legacy of displacement. In the aftermath of the Vietnam War, Vietnam faced the daunting task of rebuilding a war-torn nation. The country underwent significant political and economic changes, moving towards reunification and recovery. Efforts to reconcile and rebuild communities were crucial in healing the wounds inflicted by decades of conflict. The process of U.S. withdrawal from Vietnam was fraught with challenges. As the United States grappled with the realities of leaving a war it could not win. The withdrawal underscored the limits of military intervention and reshaped American foreign policy, prompting a more cautious approach in future international engagements. The Vietnam War's legacy is profound, influencing global politics and altering perceptions of military intervention. It prompted reconsideration of foreign policy strategies and highlighted the complexities of ideological conflicts. The war's lessons continue to resonate, serving as a cautionary tale for future generations and shaping discussions on international relations. The Vietnam War left a deep psychological impact on veterans, with many suffering from PTSD. This mental health crisis highlighted the need for better support systems. Efforts to address PTSD have led to increased awareness and improved care for veterans, though challenges in accessing comprehensive treatment still exist. The Vietnam War significantly influenced American culture, particularly in film and music. Movies like Apocalypse Now and songs such as Fortunate Son captured the war's complexities and its impact on society. These cultural expressions continue to shape public understanding and perceptions of the conflict's legacy. Lessons from the Vietnam War have informed military strategies and foreign policies. The conflict underscored the importance of understanding local dynamics and the limitations of military intervention. These insights have guided future engagements, emphasizing diplomacy and the need for clear objectives in international conflicts. Memorials and commemorations play a crucial role in honoring those who served in the Vietnam War. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. serves as a powerful symbol of remembrance and healing. These sites provide a space for reflection, ensuring that the sacrifices of veterans are not forgotten. The Vietnam War dramatically altered U.S.-Vietnam relations, paving the way for future diplomatic ties. Over time, both nations have worked towards reconciliation, with improving trade and cultural exchanges. This evolving relationship highlights the potential for healing and collaboration despite a complex and painful history. The Vietnam War significantly impacted the economies of both the United States and Vietnam. For the U.S., the war led to increased government spending, contributing to inflation and budget deficits. In Vietnam, widespread destruction and loss of life hindered economic development, setting back progress for decades and necessitating extensive rebuilding efforts. Globally, the Vietnam War altered perceptions of American power and policy. The protracted conflict and its controversial nature led many to question U.S. motives and effectiveness in foreign interventions. This skepticism influenced future diplomatic and military strategies, prompting a re-evaluation of America's role on the world stage. Controversies surrounding the Vietnam War continue to spark debate. Critics argue the war was unjustified and poorly managed, while some believe it was necessary to contain communism. These differing opinions reflect broader discussions about military intervention, national policy, and the moral implications of war, echoing through subsequent generations. In summary, the Vietnam War left a complex legacy, influencing global politics, economies, and cultural narratives. The conflict's many facets, from its economic repercussions to its role in shaping international relations, continue to be studied and debated, offering valuable insights and lessons for understanding modern geopolitical dynamics. If this exploration into the Vietnam War's impact resonated with you, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing to help spread awareness. Engaging with this history is crucial for fostering informed discussions about the war's lasting effects and its lessons for future generations.